Tēnei hui o te kaunihera o ngā roto o Rotorua. Welcome back everyone to today's council meeting. Before we get underway, I'll just remind you that this is being live streamed, that your mobile phones be off, and we'll look to take a morning break by 11 if we need to. I do also want to note that we have a late item that will be discussed, the Head Start clarification of review measures and potential configurations. But before we get underway, I'd like to invite Councillor Barker to start us with a karakia.
Thank you, Worship. Tutawa mai runga, tutawa mai raro, tutawa mai roto, tutawa mai waho. Ki tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ura ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tāki e.
Thank you very much, and we welcome Councillor Rotorua Tate, who's joining us by Zoom. If you could just pop, and I'll just check if there are any declarations of interest for today. Nope, and any apologies. We just have one from Deputy Mayor Kai Fong. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? That's seconded by Councillor Wing. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. We'll just move our minutes. Oh, sorry. Are there any urgent items or minor matters for discussion today? Nope. Thank you. We'll now go to confirmation of minutes. We've got meeting held on 20th of May and also minutes of the Emergency Council meeting on 8th of June. That's page 6 and 17 of your agenda. And I just need a mover to confirm that they are true and correct. It's moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Barker. Any corrections required? No, we will put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's also carried. Thank you. We don't have any public forums, so we'll move straight to the staff reports, and we're going to welcome our CE of the Rotorua Airport, Nicole Brewer, and I'll ask for a mover and a seconder that we receive this report, CCO Quarterly Report, Rotorua Regional Airport Limited, April 2026. That's moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Maxwell. All those in favour to receive it, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. So we'll now hand over to Nicole, who will overview a presentation and the report. Thank you, Nicole.
Morena, tēnā koutou. Good morning, everyone. Kevin Ward sends his apologies. Unfortunately, he isn't able to make it today, so he has sent me, obviously, as per normal, in his place. We'll just get straight into the presentation, which is just a summary of the report, which I am assuming you have read, and then we'll take questions at the end. So financially, everything is going quite smoothly. Not a huge amount to report here, and I take that as being a really good thing. Net surplus is currently, this is at the end of April, 73% of ahead of budget. There was a large surface treatment invoice that came in May that we were expecting, and May and June are typically slightly more expensive months for the airport. So we are expecting that the percentage increase to button back slightly, but we're still expecting to finish the year ahead of budget. The revenue has largely been in line with expectations for the year, despite softer passenger numbers than expected from Air New Zealand, so that's been a really good result. And prudent cost management is what has resulted in that increase in profitability. So, we're pretty good at maintaining our costs out at the airport and ensuring we stay within budget, and this is another year of us having been able to do that. So just as I mentioned, so passenger numbers were 2% below budget and 9% below last year. So we have seen a significant drop-off in passenger numbers, and we're now sitting at around about 70% of pre-COVID, which is a lot lower than what we would expect or what we would hope. But we are actively working with Rotorua NZ to identify opportunities, and with Air New Zealand as well. The good news is that Air New Zealand obviously sort of agree with us that the schedule can't be cut too much more, and in their 3 rounds of cuts that they've done, Rotorua has been largely unaffected. So the schedule stays the same through until the end of October, and Air New Zealand are currently working on the summer schedule at the moment. Non-financial performance is all on track, so this is all our aviation and legal compliance, and the asset management report gets updated every year after the annual accounts are done, so that'll be to you by the end of the year. But there are no issues there. We did have a CAA audit on security. They hadn't been for a few years, so they came out to us and a few other airports, and they identified a couple of areas of improvement, and we're working through that. A lot of that has already been completed, and we're working on that at the moment. But everything's on track in that area. Operations and compliance. So as I've already mentioned, one of the priorities at the moment is to work with Rotorua NZ and Air New Zealand to identify growth and performance improvement opportunities. The main areas that we've identified to date are around international growth, and that aligns with Air New Zealand's strategy at the moment as well, is to look at selling international markets onto their turboprop fleet, and we are very happy to work with them to achieve that goal. And the second is around eliminating local leakage. So we know from Business Pulse surveys and others that we are getting, unfortunately, quite a few business travellers and others from Rotorua driving to other airports. And I understand the rationale for that, but equally we need to be supporting our own services, because if we're not using them, then there is the opportunity, obviously the possibility that they may be further cut in future. So we are sort of working on opportunities to be able to identify that, and it's not going to just turn like a switch, but hopefully bit by bit we can help see some improvements there. We've got a new OLS, so OLS is our obstacle limitation surface. It's the surfaces that are sort of exist in the air that no one can see that protect the airport and all the instrument flight paths. They sit in the district plan. So we're also working alongside the council team and just getting that process underway now to understand what it will look like once we've got the new design, to bring that into the district plan and make sure we've got all the protections that we need for the airport. So in that new design, we expect there will be some changes, some will benefit other areas, and it'll just be a bit of a shift around. Fleet upgrade, fleet as in things that stay on the ground with four wheels, not ones with wings that fly in the air. We've got our new Anglico that's currently on a boat somewhere, not too far away, I'm told, and it's passed its acceptance testing in the UK with flying colours. And we've got a new EV, which is just currently in the shop at the moment. That's our ops vehicle. We've gone from the diesel ute to an electric vehicle. That's for doing runway safety checks and those types of things. It actually does more Ks than you would realise going up and down the runway. That's just in the shop getting its flashing lights and radios in it at the moment. Then we'll have that up. So that means that the two vehicles that we mainly use on the airport, one will be fully electric and one is a plug-in hybrid. So that's good. It's just something that we've been doing as we've needed to upgrade fleet. Then we've looked at what options are available that are more sustainable. The rental property portfolio, so there are a number of properties that the airport owns that council acquired back in the day when the runway was extended, that primarily, or actually they all sit very close to the runway and can't, it was appropriate for the council to buy them at the time. We've been on a bit of an upgrade path on a couple of those because we had people move out, so that's progressing well. And we've got really good maintenance plans and so forth in action there. Looking forward, Stage 1A project delivery, we have appointed a project manager, and we have invited iwi to form an advisory group with the goal being that we will be able to seek sort of input from them as we make decisions along the way. So it's progressing well. We're getting ready at the moment to go out to procurement and issue an RFP. The solar array project that I've mentioned before that we're working on, that's progressing. It went through its gate 3 yesterday at the board meeting, and it's still under investigation. The next step for us is a business case that would be approved or not by the board, but so far no red flags, and that's progressing well. We're at the final stages of our aeronautical pricing. Yesterday the board approved what's going to be the final pricing determination, so setting our pricing levels for the next 3 years. So that will be advised to Air New Zealand in the next few days, and the new aeronautical charges will be in place from the 1st of July. And that's probably a high-level summary of what's going on out at the airport. I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Nicole, and very positive, and want to pass on the feedback from the community that they were very happy that Rotorua has been largely unaffected by the regional cuts that are happening elsewhere.
Thank you.
We'll open for questions now. Councillor Lee, followed by Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome back to the chamber, Nicole.
Thank you.
How's Charlie?
Charlie's good. Yep. He's doing well.
Okay, still getting the job done?
He's still getting the job done. Yeah, wildlife hazard management, I think, is a something that we can never rest on our laurels of, and we're sort of looking at what else we can do in other areas. One of the things the team have introduced this week, we've got some professional colours that have been eradicating some wildlife that's a nuisance. The initial focus has been on rabbits on the airfield, so they do it in a very, very controlled way, but it's good to have those professionals that we haven't been able to access before, but there are some people that are doing that. So that's wildlife hazard management. It's one of those things where you have to have a whole lot of tools in your arsenal, not just one thing. So it's a continual focus for us.
Cool. Any other councils showing interest in following Rotorua's lead?
Yes, so there was a NZ Airports Association webinar on Charlie and what ops dogs look like, and then, those that are interested know how to contact Ben and get all the details.
Cool, thank you. Great initiative.
And Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for the report. I just had a question on the point that we're at 70% of our passenger numbers pre-COVID. Yep. Is that similar across airports, domestic airports in New Zealand, or is that unique to us?
No, we definitely are one of the lower ones. Yep. So I don't have the exact numbers for across. On an average, in New Zealand aren't completely back to pre-COVID. They are below pre-COVID. So on average, everyone's below, but it does vary across ports. Yep.
Thank you, and I'll just check if there are any further questions. Sorry, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Worship. Just one from me. Nicole, I'm sure you do this. Cancellation rates by Air New Zealand. I'm one of those people that are guilty of driving to another airport.
Please don't. We need every passenger we can get.
I appreciate that, but getting into Rotorua after the flight's been cancelled at 10 o'clock at night on a bus is not great.
Yep.
Do we monitor the airlines' cancellation rates against and benchmark them against others? How do we sit?
So we do two things. So we get monthly data from Air New Zealand itself, and that includes reason of cancellation. So obviously some are controllable, some aren't controllable, and we monitor that closely. At the moment, it's sort of starting to trend back down again, which is really good. We have seen some improved reliability. So days like today don't help, but we also get days like this in other ports as well. I was picking somebody up from Hamilton Airport the other day, and I was at Hamilton Airport waiting for them because I was going to a meeting in Hamilton. They got diverted to Rotorua, and they were here at Rotorua while I was in Hamilton Airport waiting for them. So it does happen, and it happens to everyone. And then the other thing we do is the Ministry of Transport now issue or make all the airlines publish their OTP data. So that doesn't include the reasons for cancellation, but what it does is includes everyone's data. So we also analyse that data, and then we can benchmark ourselves against other ports. So we look at it both ways, and then it's something that we focus on. The other thing we're really focusing on at the airport is what we can do to support on-time performance and accessibility. So there's lots of things, but for example, one of the things we've just had done out at the airport is all the runway markings have been repainted. When you're in the sky trying to find the runway, some really, really bright white lines. It's like when you're driving in the dark and the lines are really faded. Well, bright white lines help. So it's just little things like that. We're making sure that we're doing everything we can from our end to support reliability.
Sorry, and did you say, how do we compare with others?
I don't have the exact numbers, but we've definitely been at the higher end, and in New Zealand are aware of that, but it is on the improve.
Okay. If it's more reliable, it's not your department, I get that, but if it's more reliable, you'll see me at the airport more often.
Yes, and that's exactly, we are fully aware of that, and it's been a number one, it's been a big focus for a while, and for Air New Zealand as well.
Excellent,
And
thank you.
we are seeing positive moves in that direction. It's one of the reasons Air New Zealand one of the main reasons they put the ATR onto the Auckland route. So it wasn't driven by demand. Actually, they've been struggling to fill that flight, so we need to fill it. But the ATR has better accessibility to the new flight paths that we also introduced a while ago, and can get in with lower cloud conditions. So it's all part of the bigger picture.
Oh, that's good news. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have been continuously lobbying to ensure that we don't have any of the controllable, or not as high of the controllable cancellations. So there's uncontrollable, like weather, that you can't control. So I know that Nicole has been working really hard behind the scenes with Air New Zealand to try and ensure not only on-time performance but reliability. And last question, I think, from Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. Thanks, Nicole, for the presentation. First question, just talking about that data that you collect and work with Air New Zealand on. Can you talk a little bit about maybe how that looks for passengers going from Rotorua through to either of the three ports through to Queenstown, and how those numbers are reflected? I remember, and the reason I ask this is because I remember, a while ago when we were discussing, advocating to Air New Zealand around that Queenstown route, that you collect, working with Air New Zealand on collecting that data of, the passengers in destination, and whether, how they fly through, for example, Christchurch or something.
Yeah, it's not possible, or I'm not aware of anyone that collects the data when somebody is travelling on two sectors, so it's all done on a sector basis. So the Rotorua sectors all individually. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head of how the three different routes are performing. Christchurch with the ATRs have generally been better, and with more and more trained pilots, they're getting better access to this new flight path, which definitely makes a difference. So I don't have the sector data, and then we would have to look at Queenstown individually. People can get to Queenstown multiple different ways, be through Wellington, Auckland, or Christchurch. So unfortunately, I don't have it when somebody's doing two sectors. It's all done on a sector basis. Yep.
Thank you. So that's not something that we can get from Air New Zealand either.
No, they wouldn't have that. They wouldn't have that information. Yeah, you would be able to make some assumptions just on general, what percentage of people are doing what, but you wouldn't have it on an accurate basis. No.
Thank you. Just talking about the reliability that Councillor Brown was talking about as well. Something that I think I and probably some of us have heard as well are for example, the tour groups coming in that used to, either fly in from Auckland or even fly out to Wellington or Christchurch. But that has, I think they've had the concerns around the reliability as well, because they've had those instances where, the flight has been cancelled, whether or not it is controllable or uncontrollable, and then they're stuck here or they can't get here, and it affects their the rest of their whole tour. So, I guess, is that part of the work that you're doing with Rotorua NZ to kind of assure those tour groups to try to get those numbers back?
Yeah, I haven't had any specific feedback from tour groups in general, but obviously the reliability is something that we're focusing across the board because it affects everyone, both individuals and tour groups. So we're not specifically focusing on it for one market, we're focusing on it for everyone. I haven't had specific feedback from groups. We still see good volumes of groups coming through the airport. Obviously, we would like more, but we would like more of all passengers. So, we're looking at it holistically, not necessarily broken down to that granular level.
Thank you. And just lastly, the new approach pathway for the ATRs. This question is probably pretty far out there, but the ILS systems are probably have a pretty high threshold to get something like that for us, isn't it?
So ILS, instrument landing systems, for those who aren't familiar, is quite a complicated setup that requires quite a lot of infrastructure at an airport level. So ILS is something that you see into the big airports, not into a regional airport. So the flight path that we've got is using RMP technology with approval required pilots. What we are working towards in the next few years is SBAS, so satellite-based augmentation system, and that would provide the levels of accuracy of ILS. So we will achieve the same things with a new technology, and that's part of the reason, for example, why we're doing the new OLS design, and we're looking at that and future-proofing with SBAS. We've also had a big focus on obstacles and obstacle management and making sure we've got the systems in place to do that. And that's all getting us ready for SBAS as soon as that technology arrives. So my understanding is that Rotorua is sort of reasonably high on the list for being extremely suitable for SBAS. So yeah, so ILS is not working for Rotorua, but there's a plan to get to similar levels of technology with other means.
That's really great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll wrap up there and allow Nicole to head off to a board meeting this morning, I believe. But thank you very much for coming in person to present back to us. We appreciate it.
Kia ora. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. What we'll do now is we'll move to the Head Start item. So this is in the other folder, late items in your Stella, if you just want to go find that now. And I'd like to invite Sam to the presenters table and also ask for a mover and a seconder that the report Head Start clarification of review measures and potential configurations be received. That's moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Brown. All those in favour to receive this report, please say aye. Thank you. Any against? That's carried. So we'll hand over to Sam.
Atamaria Council, that's loud, isn't it? Atamaria Councillors. So this is the second decision in our 3-decision stage, and apologies that the report was late, but we wanted to wait till after last week's audit and risk meeting in case anything substantially different came out of that, which it didn't. So the purpose of the report today is to progress to the next step, seek guidance whether council's comfortable progressing to the next step. And so that's to outline a little bit further what some of those criteria are and some measures that we've found through looking at data, as well as high level outline what the potential configurations could be, with obviously a catch-all that it might not be one of those or a combination of those either. So this is the first time in a public council meeting that we're committing to what some potential options may be, so that we can start to go and have we have already started, but continue those discussions with other councils themselves. And also, after I overview the report, we'll go over the very, very high level community engagement results that have come out. So we'll do some deeper analysis. It only closed on Monday night, so we've put some AI over it and things like that to just pull out some of the information that came through. And so I imagine that will be a talking point. So I'll take the report as read, and I'll move through these and then come back to any questions that we have on it. So in terms of the community engagement, we received 323 online submissions, so 297 of those came through people going on to the Participate platform website, and 26, there was a rangatahi event, I believe, at the Sir Howard Morrison Centre. Yep, it was, and so just a staff member thought that would be a great way to take an iPad down and get some views from rangatahi. So we hadn't anticipated any in-person engagement, but we thought we'd take that opportunity. So we got 26 responses from that in about half an hour, which was actually quite a good bang for your buck. We also had a Facebook poll, so we had 723 individual users on that, and you could choose multiple different things on that, so we had 9,000 votes in total on that. So the high-level themes are up there. So one of the biggest ones was the local voice, and I think none of these probably will come as a surprise because they're things that all of you have raised around the table. So local voice and Rotorua identity is a key one. So really that amalgamation could shift those decisions away from people who really understand what's going on here. There was a question around who we felt more closely aligned to. So Taupo and South Waikato came through strongly in that, and there was quite a lot of resistance towards Tauranga, and that's quite consistent with what we've seen across the country, is that anyone seems to be resistant to the bigger party. So for example, when Whakatane's done it, Whakatane don't want to go with us because they're worried that we're bigger, and you know, I guess it probably goes smaller and smaller and bigger the other way. So in the Taupo South Waikato, that was in and around things that are similar was what made it. The rates and financial risk, so lots of the submitters were sceptical that reform will reduce costs, and I'd like to think that we have been pretty clear that we don't think that it will reduce cost, and our community's on that same page as well, and also worried about inherited debt, transitions costs, unfunded infrastructure and those types of things. Lots of feedback, again, like as feedback through that's been around this space, is the rushed process and inadequate consultation. So lots of people wanted more information, and anecdotally we also heard some people didn't even complete the survey because they felt that they didn't have enough information, and it was that catch-22 that we were getting them to do the survey so that we could have more information, but we can't give them more information without them doing the survey. So, and then Māori and iwi representation and maintaining their titiriti and treaty obligations was a key concern, and that, you know, Māori representation and those treaty obligations might be diminished. And so specifically on this one, I touched on it earlier, but the question, which neighbouring regions do you feel closely aligned with? So this was a free-form box rather than trying to limit people's ideas so they could come up with whatever they want. So Taupo and South Waikato was, I say, the clear majority. There wasn't like a, you know, those are the main ones that came through. And like we said, not aligned with Tauranga, which has bigger and has that perception of being debt-ridden. In the words of the people in the survey. And then, next was Eastern Bay of Plenty and Western Bay of Plenty with kind of Makatu, here Tongariro type situation. So that's the high level of that. But any questions on any of that? But actually, first I'll pass to the Chief Executive in case he has anything he'd like to add to that.
Thank you very much, Sam. I think if you go back once and again. So a couple of comments. One is, as we've been consistent in this process, it's very challenging to rely on people's responses when you know the question you're asking them is not fully informing them. And I think we accept that part of working in EdStart is we're working with that ambiguity, and our community is working in that ambiguity. So Sam did, Mr. Fellows did a good job of outlining the parameters within which we can take feedback. It is with the information that we have, and we are very keen, as you'll see later in the paper, to step through some more structured assessment of these different options and find out truly how debt-ridden Tauranga is or not, and put some numbers around that. The second thing I'd say is through this process, we're really also seeing the same thing of lack of time coming up. And in terms of the discussions we've had with officials, how much we can do after the outline proposal, and how much that consultation after the outline proposal will allow us to materially change what's submitted, is a topic we're spending quite a bit of time trying to understand more fully. And then the last comment I'd make is when we talk about the rates and the financial risk, I think I've mentioned it last time, but I'll probably keep mentioning it. There are two things happening at the same time, and it's very difficult to know which is having what effect. And by that I mean through this process is there's the amalgamation of, or proposed amalgamation of territorial authority functions. The intention of that is to save on costs, and potentially from a scale perspective that might reduce costs in the long term. However, there's also the inheriting of the regional council functions, and it's unclear at best whether that will save on translate to lower costs for ratepayers in Rotorua. So again, my caution is around the outcome everyone wants is lower costs, but there are two things happening at the same time at least, and there's also the RMA reform, so it's quite hard to know which one's going to have what effect. So again, we're trying to do some work around that and bring that to you for the final decision, but I'll probably be a broken record around this because we shouldn't underestimate the impact of the second change, which is pulling in the regional council functions. It's not just the amalgamation of TAs that's going on here. The regional council functions are far more financially significant.
And probably to add to that, as well as the water reforms as well. So while we're still undergoing what that will look like, if we're looking at potential collaborations, say, for example, the Western Bay of Plenty and Tauranga, that they're already moved towards that, and so that would change what the financial situation looks like across those councils, and so that's work that the finance team is doing when they're coming up with those comparisons, is that, you know, what does the debt look like currently, what does it look like when Waters is out, what does Waters charging look like, because that's going to be quite different, but also those types of things. So it creates probably a little bit of grey in some of the spaces, but trying to really give you, for the final decision, all the information that we have without giving you too much information that you won't know where to start.
Well, thank you very much. We will open for questions. Just a reminder to everyone that the decision that we're needing to make today is on what potential configurations we want to continue to be assessed, and the detail in the report provides further information on those 6 criteria and what staff will then look at. The other moving piece is also we are waiting for, in particular towards that south side, Taupo and South Waikato, to indicate whether they wish to work with us or not. But any proposal going forward to Head Start needs to be 2 or more. And there is a desire across the Bay of Plenty from the mayors and the CEs to put in a Bay of Plenty regional proposal, where we put in a proposal indicating what each district or sub-region wants, and hopes and aspirations that that will all be agreed and aligned. So whether it's Eastern, West and just Rotorua, or us plus potentially South as well, as an example. So you'll see in the options that are in front of us, because we need to consider all practically reasonable options, that is why all of them are still included, but I suppose summarised as sub-regions of Southern, Eastern, Western, catchment and iwi boundaries has also been a big one that's come up, and catchment in particular talking about what way the rivers go. So whether that's the Kaituna River or whether Taupo and or South Waikato will prefer to go down the Waikato River. And I just want to note that we also have F in there, which is any combination of the above or other configurations that become apparent through the review process. So we're essentially keeping the door open as these conversations continue across the region. But key is we want our staff to go out, give them the direction of the detail and the 6 criteria that they'll now look at. So we'll open up for any questions now. Councillor Te Mara Benfeld, followed by Sanford, and then Councillor Raukawa-Tate.
Kia ora, thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Well, firstly, I think it's a really positive thing that you guys have done, and in taking the initiative to engage the community in this way. Regarding the higher level themes, are those ranked in order of most important to sort of, I suppose 1 to 5 in the top 5, or is it just general, or?
At this stage, just general. So the the further analysis that we'll do will identify that. That there probably is a little bit of a risk of doing that too, because that will depend on who did the survey and those types of things. So we will present that information, but I guess before we present it, I'll caution that now is that sometimes it's really easy to jump on, oh, this seems like the highest, when we're talking about 300 people talking about it. So we will present it in that way, but I think I'd encourage you all to think about it that this is a small proportion of the population, so this is just high-level themes that come through, not necessarily you can say everyone wants to do this because it's the number one thing.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. And that's sort of where I was hoping to go. The other one was around the submitters. I suppose the way that we've gathered this information, there's sort of we can't guarantee that they're Rotorua residents or Rotorua ratepayers or anything like that, so they could really come from anywhere in the country because of the methods that we've used. Is that right?
Yeah, so we've asked some questions in and around demography and where people are from and things, but those are all optional questions, so we didn't want to put up a barrier that people think that we're going to track them down or anything like that. So we might be able to understand most instances whether they're Rotorua residents or not, but also it doesn't mean that people could say that they are and they aren't.
Okay, cool.
If I can add one more thing probably to your earlier question. If you look at those themes, it's quite easy for a small but vital bit of new information to potentially change how people feel significantly. And I'll give you an example. Go back to the regional council functions. If potentially one option came with a legal liability of $500 million that the new unitary authority would need to inherit, that would materially change, potentially, all of the feedback that people have given, because $500 million, I'm using a deliberately exaggerated figure, landing on 30,000 rateable properties is significant. So again, this is where we're quite cautious to say, we have put out the information we've got, but we're going to do more work and bring you those detailed assessments, because some of that information we'll be able to understand over the next few weeks and bring it to you. We are considering whether there's a second round of engagement when we have more information, but there are a number of things to consider about the benefits versus costs of that. But again, I'm really cautious that asking people without giving them sufficient information and then you relying on that feedback is potentially a chain of weak reasoning.
Thank you. Go Councillor Sanford, Rakawate, and then Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Sam, for the report. I guess my question is a bit of a clarification around the recommendation that's before us today. And so my question is, in that recommendation, should we be saying somewhere that we're assessing a do-nothing option as a baseline? And the only and I don't say that in terms of like considering the backstop later on. I more say that in terms of if we do decide not to submit to Head Start, and there are other councils in our region that do submit to Head Start, in their submission, they're going to need our input into their submission, so we're going to need a position on what their position is. And to do that, if we were doing nothing, I would imagine that we would need to assess their options against our position doing nothing, because that's going to have potentially a drastic impact on how the regional council works in our region moving forward. So that was just a clarification around whether doing nothing needed to also be assessed in that.
Councillor Sanford, I might jump in because this has been a topic of some discussion amongst the CEs. How do we line up the potentially different decisions councils can make and the interrelationship of them on each other? Your first question was around, will we consider the do-nothing option? Absolutely, we will, as part of the 29th of July paper. The second part of the question was, how do our decisions interrelate with other council decisions? There is an entire work stream that the CEs are working on to try and map that out in a structured manner so that those council decisions, which they're never going to be synchronous. So they're going to be sequential. And so how does the Council 6 decision interrelate with Council 1's decision? And I don't mean in ranking order, I just mean in sequence, given that when you write the paper for Council 6, you still won't know what the decision of Council 1 is. So there's plenty of work going on in that space, and we'll try and apply our creativity to craft some options for you that cater for potential decisions of other councils where relevant.
And also, if we reflect back to the presentation from Sarah from DIA as well, where she showed also visually what potential options could be, but I suppose also in an answer, yes, there is a risk that if you did nothing and someone else put you on a proposal elsewhere and you weren't clear whether or not, which is why, while the Cs have got quite a lot of work on trying to navigate that, the mayors have also made an agreement together that we want to make a submission as a Backlandy region to ensure that whatever proposal goes forward, it is agreed, and there are willing amalgamations or partners, and no one unwillingly being moved into another district. But it's a very good question, and we'll take reassurance that on the 29th, one of the options will be do nothing, or e.g. Continue to pursue the Rotorua Unitary Authority, which was already a directive we had given to the Chief Executive prior. Something else?
It was just noted in the report too that all those options, like the comparison will be this current status quo, because that's what we all know, so that's kind of where it will come. And then, in that 29th report, we'll have the options, but those options also will get a direction on how likely other councils are to do that. So we probably wouldn't have got really far through what the proposal will look like, but at that point we've kind of, I suppose if you use a wedding analogy, we've picked our partner, and then at that point we'll probably be like, writing our vows at the altar, really, to understand what we're committing to each other.
Thank you very much. We'll now go online to Councillor Rotorua.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, look, I've noted the themes that we've heard about this morning, and retaining identity and local voice, etc. But I'm wondering about the demographics. I mean, when we want to have a relationship and an enduring relationship, we look at demographics, and our demographics are quite significantly different to Taupo and to South Waikato. I mean, we do have a very youthful population and a significant Māori population in our community. We have a low-wage economy, and also we have social issues that significantly impact our community. And I just wonder, I don't know whether I would call these a risk, but I'd certainly say that anybody that wants to partner, that we would be looking at, has to have an appreciation of where some of our focus must be in the future. And I didn't really see any significant, excuse me, I don't know. I didn't see any focus on the importance of demographics coming through at this point, and maybe they will at some point in the future. But I just wanted to pose that question because I do think that they need to be factored in right as soon as possible.
Through you, Your Worship, Councillor Rotorua, you're quite right that that isn't captured at this stage. The intention was to capture that through the 6 criteria where we've got communities of interest, and that's the criteria under which a number of the examples you used are going to be assessed, and we'll come back to you as part of assessing all of the options, including demographics, wage, types of sectors that the economy works in, future employment, growth industries, etc. That will come to you.
Yeah, and just to add,
and I also think, Madam Chair, that we should be fully aware of what the demographics are of any community of interest that we might be looking at in the future as well. So just my comments at this stage. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And just on page 5 of the report under the communities of interest, one of the areas that the team's already been looking at is demographic alignment, which includes age profile, ethnicity, the deprivation index, and urban-rural structure. So some of that work that's come by, and particularly RNZ as well as Greg's team are helping us with that. But some of the overlay information that they've started to gather has been really interesting to compare who actually is quite close to us and not before. So that's definitely the type of information that we'll bring to you for that final decision, alongside other things like, amount of freshwater areas they have versus coastal areas and all of those types of things, because we want to ensure that if we come into a different configuration, that our staff, elected members, communities have a similar understanding or a similar skill set to any combination that we're part of.
Yeah, thank you. And Councillor O'Haltake, can also thank you for mentioning that in detail, because I do think the income or the low wage profile that she's mentioned, I think South Waikato in particular as well, it'll just be good to understand, because whatever future unitary authority, we need to understand who ratepayers would be, so we can also understand the ability to not only service and maintain assets but also grow them, hopefully. So we'll go now to Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your report there, Sam. And I thought the feedback from the community was mildly titivating, but obviously far short from proper consultation. One of the criteria that we don't have for assessing is legality. I guess this is sort of a step backwards from it. I look back at my notes from watching the presentation of the Simpson-Grierson lawyers, and the word that Ash Corner used to describe the legal advice that he presented was that this had derailed the Head Start program. So they have serious reservations about councils proceeding with a unlitigated, or unlegislated, I should say, process. What can we expect on the 29th of July in terms of the third option, which is to proceed with a potential reorganisation of local government with any one of these councils, but under the basis of Part 3 of the Local Government Act?
Yeah, so I guess I can't judge where we'll get to, but I would imagine one of the options that we will present in that final will be that will present all reasonably practicable options. That's probably, conceptually a reasonably practicable option. I mean, one of the main issues for that option will be the fact that under that part of the Act that you need agreement from both of the regional council partners, and so far discussions have indicated that because the Head Start process is going on, neither of those regional councils are willing to agree to that, because they don't want to be seen to be circumventing the government's process. And in addition to that, central government also needs to agree to it. So I would imagine that, if I put myself in the shoes of central government, I'm probably not going to be agreeing to something that circumvents a process that I'm trying to do. However, just like other options, I would imagine that that will be an option that will be presented along with a whole bunch of other options, and provide the information of why or why not that may or may not be recommended. But I guess we're not at the stage of understanding what that looks like, nor whether we will be recommending or simply allowing you to choose. I think we're nowhere near being able to determine what that would look like.
This is a fast-moving and fluid environment, isn't it? So perhaps once the August 8 deadline passes, and if hypothetically we had not joined Head Start, then the regional councils might be in a different place to consider supporting us with that process. Of course, the Part 3 process does have the advantage of being lawful. So one option that I think we certainly should consider.
I might just see if the CE does have any comments on that, because ministers have been very clear that they will create bespoke legislation to suit Head Start proposals. So it really is an opportunity for communities to say, actually, this is what we want our future to look like. But I'll just get some clarity from the CE specifically to your comments.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. I just want to be clear that there has been action taken by me to progress Part 3 reorganisation. The response we've got back from the regional councils is also quite clear that they support a catchment-wide reorganisation and they do not support individual TAs becoming unitary authorities. So, and that's reflected both in their correspondence with us regarding our initial request for a Part 3 reorganisation, and in both regional councils' approach to supporting TAs through the Head Start process. So both regional councils that we are concerned with are both supportive of a single unitary in their regions and are advocating with TAs on that model. There are nuances in the different two regional councils. I totally accept that. But from a regional council perspective, they have been quite clear to us what their view is. And so the probability of them changing their view after the 9th of August factors into the advice we'll give you around how likely that is to give you the outcome that you're looking for through the Part 3 reorganisation. So I just want to be clear.
And just on that too, what we are aiming to do with the Bay of Plenty wide proposal, or Bay of Plenty wide agreed proposal, is even if Rotorua is its own unitary or sub-region, that would also have the regional councils. They aren't able to put in a proposal, but I suppose agreement. So you've got the 7 TAs and 8 is the regional council in the Bay of Plenty. So we're currently working together, but it's not to say Rotorua won't end up being its own unitary based on what is seeming to fall into natural sub-regions anyway.
Andrew, if we have received correspondence from the regional councils on this, I think this is very important information that should be circulated at least to elected members and potentially made available to the public. It's we need to understand their reasoning, and could that be released, that information?
Yeah, Councillor, I'll take that as an action point to see whether any of this has been in writing or in just purely in the conversations I've had with Regional Council, but I'll seek to do that and circulate it with councillors.
Well, I'd suggest if it's not in writing, then it's probably not worth the paper that it isn't written on.
There definitely has been correspondence out from us, whether or not they responded in correspondence back. Regional Council, I think, did. But we'll follow up on that. I do know because it was some time ago. We're talking last year when we first directed our Chief Executive to do this. And personally, I was of the understanding that he had reported back to the next relevant council meeting at the time. So because there's not much to report back on, it was, okay, that's it. I suppose that's just the only reason why it may not have been in a full report. So quite simple.
Yes, I think as a politician, if that's what I am, then the opportunity to raise this publicly and question and challenge their reasoning would be important in this process.
Thank you. And we'll move now to Councillor Barker, and then we'll take a final question from Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Sam, for your report. I'm just interested in asking a question around the proposed measures for analysis, particularly number 5 on page 6, around representation. Particularly the representation ratios and the councillor per capita basis, which there are legislated or guidelines in the legislation around. I note on the Zoom meeting last night with LGNZ, there was the Minister was online answering questions around various matters, and someone asked the question, is it necessary that we stick to the 10% plus or minus rule? And the Minister appeared to indicate that not necessarily so if you have a good reason not to. Will we be looking at options that are outside those parameters in this investigation to make sure that we have captured local voice?
Yeah, so I think I'll say yes, but we're looking at multiple different options. So primarily we'll be comparing what exists at the moment across each to see if we're compatible, and then also provide some high level what options could be. I think that'll largely depend on who we go, our configuration is with, and the work that we do alongside those parties, but yeah, definitely look at. It will primarily, I imagine, be based on what currently exists either here or across the country, or maybe looking externally. So I wouldn't imagine it's probably some vastly out there scheme, but also we're open to if someone has something that's completely different that could represent a better way of getting community voice, that might be something that's taken into account. But that really probably is something that's almost in the second stage once we get a proposal approved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think most of mine can wait till we get to the sharp end of these decisions, but a question perhaps for the CEO in your conversations, and I think I heard from the Mayor that unitary alone for us is a potential, although not technically part of Head Start, but if we could get agreement of those around us for us to be alone, are those conversations happening?
Yes, through you, Your Worship. Quite right, Councillor Brown. We've done a number of formal clarifications with the Department of Internal Affairs to confirm that within a proposal there must be some amalgamation, and a proposal can contain a number of sub-regional unitary authorities, and so a potential eligible proposal might be a proposal whereby Rotorua keeps its own borders and configurations but takes on the unitary powers in its entirety, as long as other TAs within that proposal do amalgamate with each other. That would be an eligible proposal. Again, government's been quite clear to state what eligibility is and not necessarily saying that those will be accepted, but we are working on the basis that that might be one of the outcomes.
Okay, thank you. Just a question in under the recommendations, we're talking about catchment and iwi boundaries, and specifically the Kaituna. If we were thinking that way, and I've heard this from the rural sector, those that are rural in the southern part of our district are technically in the Waikato catchment. Would we not think of moving that responsibility to the Waikato if they agreed? Picking up on that theme?
Yeah, so I think, and that's probably why we also have the F there, so it could be that or a combination or a difference from that. So that'll be the types of things that we're looking at, and yeah, catchment is a key focus of the government in this, but also from lots of people that we're talking to as well. So I guess all of those things will be in the mix to have a look at.
Okay, thank you.
If I can add to that, is there are three specific functions that government have mentioned in their criteria, but I want to caution us all that for a unitary authority, those three functions are less than 10% of all of the functions that will be delivered, and communities of interest is a very significant one. Council has adopted a broad range of criteria, and if you proceed with the resolutions as drafted, we will use all of those to give you an assessment. Because catchment management is identified, it's clearly important to the government. However, decision-making around this table needs to, well, my advice would be, needs to be on what's important to this council, and catchment management would be one of them rather than necessarily the most dominant. The other thing to add to that is there might be other ways to provide catchment management that aren't around the unitary boundaries, so joint committees, other sort of co-governance agreements that exist through the Waikato are all mechanisms whereby catchment management can be provided across unitary boundaries. So my caution is against using one criteria to determine the shape and form of a unitary authority.
And I think staff have been very wise in putting in that option of F as well, that any combination of the above or other configurations that become apparent through the review process. I also want to note that we Governance will put this in our calendars very soon. There will be another workshop with ourselves to discuss this in more detail. The purpose of today is really just to confirm whether we are okay with the options, all the options basically, or the other option for a decision is Council direct staff to cease work on investigating whether participation in Head Start is in Rotorua's best interest. So we think it will probably be the first week of July we'll get together again, but we do want to, our chairs of our community boards, both Rural and Lakes, have been involved in discussions and assisting with this work, but we do want to extend that to all the community board members that just recently, in their last community board meetings, had an update on the Head Start as well. So we do hope to get a strong Rural and also Lakes voice through that process. I do just want to finally mention, though, that we are working closely with DIA and Sarah, who presented to us. Andrew's been successful in confirming that she'll be the one to assist advising us moving forward, and based on what I've seen from the number of presentations from DI, I'm quite delighted at that actually. So what I'd like to do is ask for a mover and a seconder now. It's moved by Councillor Sandford and seconded by Councillor Wang for point 2A to F. And we are now open for discussion, but I just ask that we keep that discussion brief. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move an amendment to number 3, if I may, please.
Yep, we'll just wait for your amendment. Thank you. Okay, so I'll just ask Councillor Patterson to read his amendment, and then we'll ask for a seconder. If there is one, we'll open for discussion on that item before putting it to the vote. If there's not a seconder, then we'll return to the initial. So over to you, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my amendment to item number 3 would be 3A notes that Council has not received advice regarding the legal status of the outcome of the 2025 binding referendum on Māori wards in the event that a successor unitary authority is established through the government's Head Start pathway. 3B would be request the Chief Executive to formally seek clarification from the Minister of Local Government and the Department of Internal Affairs as to whether the outcome of the 2025 binding referendum on Māori wards, 1, continues to apply to any successor unitary authority, 2, lapses upon the establishment of a successor unitary authority, or 3, becomes a matter for determination through the governance and representation arrangements established for the successor unitary authority, and report that advice back to Council at the earliest possible opportunity.
Thank you very much. I just want to check with you, Councillor Patterson. Those could be an action point regardless, or would you like to ask for a seconder?
Yes, I would like to ask for a seconder.
Is there a seconder for that? That's seconded by Councillor Temera Benfell. We might just take a quick pause here so that we can get it up on the screen for everyone. So why don't we just take a 10-minute break and we'll come back at 10:43. Thank you. Thank you very much for that short break. I might just ask Greg to outline the process. Sorry, thanks.
Morena councillors, just by way, we haven't done an amendment in quite some time, so probably just to refresh everybody's memories. What we have on the table right now from Councillor Patterson is an amendment. We have a seconder for that. So what will happen now is that amendment will be discussed. So only point 3 will be discussed, and whether or not, and then a vote will be taken as to whether or not that is included in the substantive motion. We will then come back and discuss the substantive motion in entirety. So what you have in front of you now is a discussion around whether to include 3A and B in the substantive motion. Hope that's clear.
Thank you, and I'll just check, Councillor O'Coltate, can you see it on your screen?
Yes, yes, I can. Thank you.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we are now open to discussion. Councillor Patterson, did you want to start us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would. Just want to make clear that firstly, this is not an amendment about being a position for or against Māori wards. It's not seeking to stop the Head Start process. It's not seeking to direct a preferred outcome. It's simply seeking clarification on a question that is very relevant to what we're doing here today. So central government passed legislation requiring councils, including ours, to hold a binding referendum on the future of Māori wards. The government's stated rationale at that time was, and I quote, local communities should determine whether Māori wards should exist in their district. So they made that statement more than once. Rotorua voters participated in that process. Significant public resources were invested in that process, nearly 2 million, or more than 2 million nationally. And then you've got to think about the advocacy groups who got involved in that process, who campaigned for and against Māori wards. Councils then themselves administered the polls, voters cast their ballots, and then a result was obtained. We know what the outcome for that was. But the thing is now, less than a year later, council's being asked to investigate participation in the government's Head Start pathway. So the documents we have that I've read through, and I hope no doubt all of us have, they are not clear about the boundaries or organisational structures. It contemplates the creation of new unitary authorities, new governance arrangements, and new representation arrangements. DIA has advised us that representation issues may be addressed through the Head Start process, rather than through the normal representation review process that we usually conduct. So the report before us identifies Māori wards, Māori representation and local voice as matters to be assessed as part of that process. Yet despite all of that, we haven't received any advice regarding the legal status of the 2025 binding referendum, especially should a successor unitary authority be established. So, does that result continue to apply? Does it lapse? Or does it become a matter for a future governance decision of that unitary authority? I don't know. Staff don't appear to know. That's because council has not been advised. And whether that's precisely, and that is precisely why this clarification is required for us today. Regardless of where we as individual members stand on the position of Māori wards, we should be able to agree on one thing. As the government required our community to participate in a binding referendum, the council is entitled to surety that the legal status of the resulting decision carries into any future governance structure. This amendment's not asking for an outcome. It's not advocating for an outcome. All it is seeking is certainty before council continues assessing a process that may impact a voter-mandated decision from 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll just ask the seconder now if you have anything to add.
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. For me, the proposed amendment, the primary objective is to seek clarity from the Minister for Local Government. I think we have had a indicative response from a DIA official with regards to this, but I sort of take all that stuff with a grain of salt at the moment, unless it's in writing from either the Minister or the Department of Internal Affairs. And so for me, this just seeks clarity on what the options are under these particular recommendations. So yeah, that's why that's really the crux of why I'm supporting the recommendation.
Thank you very much. I would just like the Chief Executive to provide some comments, and then we're open for discussion.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you just want to address one aspect of Councillor Patterson's comments that staff don't appear to know. Just to be clear, we've given advice on what we do know, and what you're seeking is information that potentially only the Minister knows, and so I don't have any objection to the resolution or wording that's up there. I think it's very practical. What I would say is the advice from DIA has been that at the moment the law hasn't changed, and we've talked about that a number of times here. The clue is in binding. It is binding, and until the law changes, we are bound by that. So that part I can say with confidence, because it's fairly elementary. What the scope of Head Start is and what you're seeking to get clarity on from the Minister, I can certainly act on and progress. So just want to be clear that we've given you advice on what we know. Yes.
Thank you. We are open for discussion. What I'll do though is we'll just keep it brief because we want to get back to the original motion as well. Councillor Lee.
How did you guess, Madam Chair, that I wanted to say something? I hadn't actually signalled, I thought, but anyway, I do. That's okay. That's lovely. ESP, yes. Yes. Central government, being Parliament, do have extraordinary powers to make laws, particularly in New Zealand. And some laws do supersede other laws. For example, Environment Canterbury passed a local bill similar to our Rotorua Representation Arrangements Bill in 2022. And turns out it requires a local bill to repeal that. And the removal, so central government can't even repeal that bill.
Point of order, irrelevant.
Yeah, we're getting there, Councillor Brown.
Thank you.
Question?
No, thank you, Councillor Brown. To the point, Councillor Lee, on this amendment.
The point of it is that the disestablishment of regional councils supersedes or eliminates the representation bill down there. And similarly, the new legislation is likely to also make all of that redundant, actually. And there will be a clean slate under the legislation for councils, new councils, unitary councils, to establish wards as they see fit. Unlike Councillor Patterson, I'm not wedded to the results of that particular referendum quite as much, given that Te Tātou Aotearoa, who are funded by the ratepayers to the tune of $300,000 a year.
Point of order, Your Worship, relevance.
Thank you. Yes, if you could just focus on the asking what's before us, which is formally seeking the Chief Executive to seek clarity on this.
Yes, I'm explaining why I won't be supporting it.
Okay. Final comments, thank you.
So given that Te Tātou Aotearoa indulged during the election period in vote harvesting and offering prizes and paying advertisements...
I'll stop you there, thank you. That's not correct.
It is correct.
It's not correct, Councillor.
It's absolutely
correct. You have a particular view, and I'll ask if you wish to withdraw that and apologise
I'm going to call
for
a
your
point of
accusations.
order misrepresentation on you. It's documented and in the media that vote
Councillor
harvesting
Lee, we'll
happened.
stop there, thank you. Thank you. We'll stop there, thank you. We'll move. I'll just check if there are any comments. I think it's are there further comments? I think it's very straightforward. I don't have an issue with it. It is something that has been raised from councillors as well, and this just formalises. I will say though, hopefully we get a response back, but sometimes it does take a while for the ministers to get back to us. We'll take one final comment from Councillor Maxwell on this amendment, and then we'll put it to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to support this recommendation and explanation given by the mover, Councillor Patterson. And I won't repeat all the points he raised, but I thought they were excellent. And regarding the binding referendum, but I just want to touch on how unfair this whole thing has been towards not only the Maori wards and the referendum, but regional council itself. I even feel a little aroha for them. They're in nowhere land at the moment because I'd hate to be a regional councillor at the moment, but how they feel and why I feel for them too. I thought they had legislation passed some years ago, I've forgotten the year, where they had Maori wards in the 3 areas in Bay of Plenty forever. Sadly, no, it can be changed every 3 years. And I use the word hoha a little bit. That's why Māoridom are hoha. There are things that go on here that can be changed every 3 years. Nō reira, I cover all the points and I'm going to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just for those who may be live streaming, I'll read it one more time and then I'll put this to the vote. The proposed amendment the amendment before us is that Council notes that Council has not received advice regarding the legal status of the outcome of the 2025 binding referendum of Māori wards in the event that a successor unitary authority is established through the government's Head Start pathway. Point 3B, request the Chief Executive to formally seek clarification from the Minister of Local Government and the Department of Internal Affairs as to whether the outcome of the 2025 binding referendum on Māori wards 1. Continues to apply to any successful unitary authority, 2. Lapses upon the establishment of a successor unitary authority, or 3. Becomes a matter for the determination through the governance and representation arrangements established for the successor unitary authority, and report that advice back to Council at the earliest opportunity. That's been moved and seconded. I now put that to the vote, and I'll just ask for a show of hands, please. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Any against? Thank you. Yep, and we'll note there is one against. That has been carried. So point 3 will now be included in our point 2. We have point 2A to F, and we do have a mover and a seconder for that. That now includes point 3 as well. I think we've had adequate discussion. That was moved by Councillor Sanford, seconded by Councillor Wang. I'll put that to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. That provides certainty to our staff on the direction and the information that they will now prepare, and also to our community. That has been carried. So we'll now move to parking management guidelines, minor amendments. I'd like to welcome Kurt. This is page 28 of your agenda. Following that, we're going to receive an update on the community funding impact report, financial update, community experience dashboard, and then confidential items to be released for a certain period. Can I please have a mover and a seconder that the report Parking Management Guidelines Minor Amendments be received? That's moved by Councillor Timura Benfell, seconded by Councillor Brown. All those in favour to receive, please say aye. Against, that's carried. Thank you very much for your patience, Kurt and other staff. Over to you.
Morena, and through you, Your Worship. I think given the brevity of the report, I'm happy to take that as read and move to any questions if that's okay.
Very okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this minor amendment? That's been moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Sanford. I'll just check any debate. No? Well done, Kurt. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, that's carried. Now move to page 32, and my pleasure to welcome Alex Wilson and also Wiremu to overview this presentation. And can I please have a mover and a seconder that the report Community Funding Impact be received? Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Barker. Thank you. All those in favour to receive, please say aye. Any against? That is carried. And we'll hand over to Alex and Wiremu to cover off this.
Morena, councillors, and through you, Worship, this is an information item. I will pass over and I'll try and be, I don't think I'll be as fast as Kurt, but we will do our best to keep the pace. Just as a bit of a refresher, about 12 months ago we were sitting in this spot looking at our last funding report, and we made a commitment to this chamber to start to move from outputs to outcomes and impacts. So this is our first report that attempts to do that. I do want to say, look, it covers kind of 2 years. The big difference there is going back any further than that, our data wasn't organised in the way to easily report on outcomes. So something we'll continue to work on, but this will cover the 2 years. But I'll pass swiftly over to Wiremu, Mr. Taupara, to take us through. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou. E te manukura o tī rā, nā kaikaunihera, mauri ora kia tātou. I will be brief as well. I'll just preface a few things in the report and then cover some of the key elements and then questions, and then welcome some feedback to help us keep moving forward with the impact of our community funding. Just want to acknowledge Jill Campbell and Mike Cocken here, who supported the work in preparing this report. I will move through now. So total funding, that's all covered. This is just a summary for you. I think the key highlight here is really the demand that is present across all of our funding streams from the community. Well beyond what we have, but certainly playing a key role in the ecosystem of funding community. The other thing too is to note the style of funding. We've used the word catalyst there, enabling additional funding to be sought, often through volunteerism and often through community in-kind support. That really enables local responses to local issues and helps us extend, I suppose, council's dollar into the corners of the community that we might not always be able to reach. We view a lot of the recipients as delivery partners. They're all aligned with council's priorities, and in a lot of ways, they're recipients, but also they help deliver on the priorities of council. The final part, Alex touched on this, which is quite exciting, for me at least, and the team, is moving towards broader impact measures for our funding portfolio. We've implemented a 10-point capability matrix, a toolbox for our community organisations, which is something that we'll be talking about in further reports to council. So here are the highlights. Community Matching Fund. The key thing there is return on investment. Community contributions are up this year. As this chamber's familiar, moving into the role 9 months ago, being able to pick up a good system that really understood what we were doing with community and public funding for community impact was a real pleasure to see. I think what we've done is further enhance that this year, and really when we look at how those numbers are growing, I think that's through being pretty detailed and pretty diligent through the panels and the work that we do to fund where we see the most impact and most return on what we are doing. Partnerships, these are multi-year agreements. Our funding partners, you'll see a case study we use with Citizens Advice Bureau. We have 19 others who we fund as well. This is where we are supporting organisations, or the panel supports organisations that have a clear alignment with council's priorities, and those organisations we support, and we provide them certainty for 3 years. So we've just completed year 2 of that round, and next year will be the 3rd year of those agreements. And then finally, new to the department this year as a part of coordinating council's funding portfolio was the Creative Communities Scheme. This is funding that we receive from Creative Communities New Zealand, and as you'll see, quite a big reach in this area. We will start to provide longer term data on this as we go through it too. As I said, this is the first time that our department has administered that fund. So with that being said, and the report being read, I'll open for any questions and feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I also want to acknowledge that we have Jill Campbell in the audience, our Community Programs Team Leader, and also a new face, Mike Cocken, who is our Funding and Sponsorship Advisor, and certainly helping us with the hard yards for funding, such as for museum exhibitions, so thank you. So we open now for any questions. Councillor Te Mara Benfell, followed by Brown.
Kia ora, thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Well, if I can start my questions just with a quick comment. I think this is a very positive report, and I think reading actually the return on investment is actually quite positive as well. We don't really get to see too many returns of investment of that scale, so that's quite a huge positive for me in terms of the report. My question with regards to, so we've invested this financial year 357,000 and some change into 3 community programs. Has that amount increased year on year with the increasing need, or has that remained stagnant, or what does that look like?
Through the last LTP, the funding has remained the same each year.
And has the team, so I see here as well through your report, so all funds saw a high demand with over 2.4 million requested over the funds, which I understand is a trend across the entire philanthropic / funding sector. Do you have, I suppose, an idea of if the fund were to increase year on year, of what a percentage increase would be to align with any particular themes that you're seeing, or do you think it's adequate for that number to stay stagnant, I suppose is the secondary question.
Through the chair, I think it's a debate for the LTP, essentially how much this chamber would want to put into community funding. We know the demand outstrips the supply, but that's the same for all funds nationwide.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, followed by Wang.
Thank you, Your Worship. This may be an LTP question, I'm not sure, but I'll ask it anyway. Do we know what it costs Council to deliver this funding?
I'll start and then Wiremu can correct me. Look, we know the staff inputs, we know the panel inputs in terms of assessing applications. That's something we could derive, but it's not something we have, as far as I'm aware, calculated.
Yeah, that's correct. The only thing I'll add is that with the current setup of the department, we have multiple roles being performed by multiple employees. So to pull that out, what I can say though is it is pretty minor. And certainly with efficiencies that we're finding and having Mike on board, our expectation is that it's certainly manageable through our current staffing requirements.
And perhaps something we can go into more detail in future if you wish for LTP discussion.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the value of the funding that's going out. I get the return on investment, but I just wonder what the delivery cost is and whether potentially there are other models. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, Councillor Brown's asked the first question I had, and that's something that we've discussed, I remember, even in the previous LTP as well. Thank you for the presentation, and this is something really important to me as well. I guess a first question is just around, so I know that in the past, I've been on one of the panels as well, and what we heard from the applicants was that the funding that they got from council through either the neighbourhood matching or the partnership funding, community grants, enabled them to go to larger funders in a way that they had the backing of their local authority. Potentially to help make that application more successful. I'm just wondering, looking at these numbers, huge demand. We obviously aren't able to meet that, and we are having to decline quite a few. But as many of us know that have other roles in community funding and philanthropy, is there a opportunity to potentially say a letter from the mayor or something like that to acknowledge their contribution to our community, and I guess a letter of support that we can provide to those that we think are, that do a great amount of work in our community, but unfortunately with our very, constrained funding, weren't successful. Is that something that, that we could look at doing to support them?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, that is something we can do as staff in terms of recommending support, particularly with alignment to council priorities. And to your first point around the funding as being a catalyst, that's that $7 million ecosystem that we support that enables various projects to leverage council funding, and we kind of act as an anchor and a key point for that. So yes, and part of our feedback there too, just quickly, is that 100% of those funded partners recognised that contribution from council and being aligned with council actually achieved more than just what the dollar amount was too, beyond the investment as well. So they valued the relationship.
Thank you.
And I'll just, I'll just add one extra little piece. One of the services that the team provides is convening essentially a funding collective. I've probably got the term wrong, but that's to help people understand what other funding is out there. So we become navigators to other people's funding pots where we can't support.
Thank you. That's actually a great segue into my second question as well, which was, I guess throughout the application process and when the panel meets to discuss them, guess what opportunities are we looking at to get, I guess, more bang for our buck, I guess, because, there are other, private funders out there, and also other organisations that do provide funding, and the opportunities to get that kind of matched funding, probably co-funding is the correct term, to get even more impact out of that, that kind of impact investment, impact funding that we can get, and so I guess throughout that process, is that something that that I guess the team have also been looking at, to reach out to those other partners, other organisations, to see if there is that possibility to get even more, for it to go even further?
Yes, and that flows on really nicely from Alex's point too. And one of the first criteria that goes through in the staff analysis before the panels make their decisions is definitely looking at if there are other opportunities for funding for that project as well, and that advice is often given to the recipients as well, or those that are declined too.
Great, thank you.
And just one point from me. Look, we've seen the money go 29% further this year. So I think that's on the graph on one of your pages, the blue, red, and orange graph. We will continue to monitor that. I think that's a really great measure for us to make sure we are kind of leveraging as much as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a final question from Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, thank you for the report. A bouquet to your team. It's really good to see the outcome of all the effort that's been put into this. I'd share that Saskia has come up in a number of conversations I've had with community groups that she really does a great job of getting out there. And so, bouquet to her too. Just going forward, this was great for us to see. These are stories that our community needs to be told as well, and loudly, because this is the kind of thing that our people don't see us doing, that we are actually out there trying to help and make a difference in our community. This is a great story to tell. So if we could have the next step being some sort of communications program, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. And for sure, part of what we're wanting to do is be more transparent and public with that too. Part of that is growing the work that our department does, so we'll take that as an action and something we're keen to do.
Thank you for raising that, and apologies, I missed Councillor Rokawate online.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think sometimes we overlook the fact that our community wants us to know what they're doing. And they're doing the hard yards, have done the hard yards, usually on the smell of an oily rag for such a long time. And yet they still come. 2.4 million were requested, and we could only support 357,000. And they know about the Bay Trust, they know about the Rotorua Trust and other organisations that they go to. But I think they come knowing that they'll take their chances with council, but also wanting us to be aware of the great mahi that they do and have been doing for such a long time. And so sometimes when we think about saying, well, there's an opportunity, yes, there's always an opportunity to co-partner, etc. But I would just ask the question about the feedback that you get from those who have been successful and about the support that they do receive from council, even though it may not have been the amount that they requested. But I do believe a lot of the grantees actually are very not only grateful for what they receive, but they're pleased that it actually came from council, because there are a number of other factors that they believe are important as well. And I don't know if that's just my view. I just thought it may well be the view of the report writer as well, those who had input into the report.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, it touches on the point. We do ask for a measure of our partners and funded partners, their view on how we have performed through the process, if you will, and that was where we got the 100% acknowledgement from our funded partners, that they recognise the relationship goes beyond what we just offer in terms of financial contribution.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that concludes the questions, and I do wish to thank you for your presentation. It is a tough time out there, and we know that even locally some of our trust and philanthropic organisations have been reducing their funding, so it's good to see the impact here for Rotorua from Council. Thank you. We'll now move to our report, financial update. Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive this? That's moved by Councillor Barker, seconded by Councillor Brown. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. And we'll hand over to David and also Michelle to overview their presentation for April 2026. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Worship and elected members. So this report covers Council's finances to the end of April, which is 10 months through the financial year. Let's go for that presentation too. There are a number of themes in this report that are similar to previous months. So operational revenue is $7.3 million ahead of budget due to the large number of ratepayers paying the Tarawera sewerage charges who have elected to pay by lump sum is more than we had forecast. Capital revenue is still significantly behind budget, and there's the combination of lower development contributions and still the challenges establishing the work program for the IIG stormwater projects. Not a lot of material change from this time last month. Expenditure is $700,000 ahead of year-to-date budget, and I'll expand on that probably in 2 slides' time. When we come to our capital expenditure, we are underspent by reasonably significantly in our capital expenditure budget, and again that's linked to that IIG stormwater project and the challenges we've had getting that project through to a further stage. At the end of April, we have a net debt of $483 million, and that is below where we had forecast to be in the annual plan. So we will be entering the new financial year with a lower debt position than we had forecast through the annual plan process, and that is linked to the underspend in our capital expenditure. At the end of April, we have an operating surplus of just over $6 million. I'll take an opportunity now just to reiterate that this report is at the end of April, and there are two transactions that will change that when we come to the end of this current financial year. Firstly, with regards to the impairment of our ERP system, which will change our operating position at the end of June. And secondly, with a legal process underway that we're still finalising the treatment with our auditors, but it is likely to have, it will appear in our operating result at the end of June. So currently showing a $6 million operating surplus. However, through those transactions, we will be showing an operational deficit at the end of June as a result of those two transactions. When we look at our P&L, there's probably one major area I'd like to remind you of that I've talked in previous years, and that's around our operating expenses. So, as by way of explanation, when we look at that the operating variance, showing that we are 2.6 million overspent year to date, that is primarily through work we have had to do with storm damage on our roading network, especially earlier in the financial year. Which is partially offset by that 50% subsidy we get from Waka Kotahi, NZTA, and showing there is $1.5 million received over our budget year to date. So currently, when we strip out the capital aspects of the P&L, we are a $6 million operating surplus. Just taking the opportunity again to remind everybody that there are some transactions coming through the preparation of our year-end accounts that are unlikely to yield in a surplus position when we come to the end of June. And sorry, just probably one further aspect to add to our P&L is we are working through the aspects of which staff time can be allocated to capital projects, and you'll see in the P&L there that at the end of April we are sitting with a positive variance of that we are 250,000 underspent on salary. Some work that we've done on the finance team, understanding which costs should sit with capital projects versus not capital projects, means that we are forecasting at the end of June to be right on budget with staffing expenses, and not overspent, but pretty much right on budget for staffing. I mentioned before that we were underspent in our capital delivery, and this graph kind of explains how that's broken up. So we have a year-to-date spend on CapEx of 75 million against a year-to-date budget of 132 million. So a lot of that is the IIG project with some other smaller projects that have not been able to be fully realised. We are forecasting a year-end capital expenditure of around between 90 and 95 million, which is on par with what we achieved last year. What's important to focus on here is that when we adopted the upcoming annual plan, we recognised some of the delivery challenges, and our capital programs going forward will not be the size they are this year. And critically, as we come through conversations with the long-term plan, we need to bring our aspirations for capital delivery probably a little more in line with our actual capacity to deliver. So $140 million for a full-year capital program this year was ambitious, and we're seeing that come through in the way that we've actually delivered. We've changed that next year with our annual plan, and we'll need to focus on that through the long-term plan just to bring the aspiration more in line with what we and the market can deliver.
If I can just add to the CFO's comments there, we need to distinguish over time as we evolve between a capital budget and a capital program. So the Chief Financial Officer is reporting on capital budgets. Obviously, we're well below those, which we should be, because we certainly wouldn't want to be above our budgets. But what we're also recognising is that we need to, over time, give you a bit more visibility on the capital program. So that means projects that Council plans to execute as opposed to budgets that are carried over from year to year. So we'll be doing that through the ongoing work of the capital delivery team.
And finally through this presentation, just a breakdown of where the capital expenditure has occurred and where some of those variances are. mainly concentrated in the stormwater activity. There are some spillover budgets that were assigned to finish off Rotorua Lakes. They're a little bit behind as well in the sewage area. And there's a breakdown there of where our $75 million capital expenditure has been allocated through this financial year to date. But I'm happy to take questions on the report or anything in the presentation.
Thank you. Open for questions. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I think this might be a question for Stavros, but if we aren't delivering on our renewals, are we putting our networks at risk of failure, if that's accumulative?
Yeah, Mr. Michaels will be happy to answer that.
I think just I'll refer back to what the Chief Executive had outlined earlier. We need to be very careful to distinguish between a budget and a program of work. The budget is more or less on a straight line, but the actual execution of works does not always follow a straight line. For example, we may have renewals that were partially completed this financial year, but a portion of it will be carried on in the new financial year. So the overarching principle is that we should aim to complete our renewal programs, otherwise we're falling behind in our condition assessment of our assets. But we are quite comfortable that our renewal programs follows more or less the long-term trajectory of investment in our renewal of our assets. Sometimes it's just the timing that, is a deviance between the budget and the program of work.
And maybe just one final question from myself, just regarding the operating expenses. I'm looking on page 52, and I'll quote, operating expenses which relate to the delivery of Council's day-to-day services are tracking 2.6 million above the year-to-date budget. This variance is primarily driven by higher contractor costs, increased materials and consumables, and additional compliance fees associated with geothermal monitoring. Is there plans in place to mitigate that in the future, or is this are these uncontrollable costs that are outside of what Council could have planned for and now we must manage?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the Chair, it's probably a mixture of both. Some of the geothermal costs were new coming in this year as a result of increased activity, but also the fact that Council adopted a bylaw that we will now need to factor in with future budgeting. There are the tail end of events happening overseas, which through the last couple of months, we had not budgeted for in the annual plan, and we will probably we have reacted as best we could coming forward. So I think it's a mixture of both. There are things that we can that we recognise will be ongoing, that we will change going forward, but that there is always an element of risk given the breadth of the services we offer and the amount that we're impacted. That we feel we have adjusted our future budgets as best we can, and look, we will react where we need to if things change.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer, and we'll take a final question from Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, looking at the infrastructure, particularly the stormwater, the IIG fund, we've been told that there's been some hold-ups and delays with the variations, etc. I think July was mentioned as a possible time for some indications as to whether those hold-ups are going to be removed and we can progress. That would mean that this money would then carry over into the new financial year. Is that correct?
I can pass over to Stavros for feedback he may have had more directly from central government, but as a matter of principle, where we are forecasting some of the IIG expenditure to be delayed, they have been pushed into the next financial year. At the moment, we are not signalling that the project will not occur and that we will not receive the subsidies. All we are reporting at the moment is that there is a delay. But I can pass on to Stavros for feedback on conversations he may have had with central government.
Thank you, David. Two elements to that. Councillor Patterson, you are correct. We are waiting for the Minister to approve the Variation 3 for the reallocation of various projects in the IIG. Pending that decision, obviously, we're making a provision to carry forward the budget in the new financial year. And depending on that decision, obviously, we'll have to revise our projects. If there is any lower amounts of money granted by the Crown, then we have to revisit what we propose to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David and Michelle. We appreciate that. We now move to our Community Experience Dashboard, page 55 of your agenda. And I'd like to invite Alex Wilson up to cover a presentation for us. Can I have a mover and a seconder that we receive this report? It's moved by Councillor Temura Benfell, seconded by Councillor Wang. All those in favour to receive, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you, Alex.
Hello all again. I will take this presentation largely as read. I will pull out a few highlights per slide that I'd like to draw your attention to. And given the June timing of this report, we have taken the opportunity to pull out a bit of a 12-month view as well, rather than just the quarterly view. But before I kick in, I'd like to introduce Rhonda Ticklepenny. She is our Manager Customer Solutions. So she's been with us in a temporary capacity, I think, for a month, and then we've managed to secure full time. So Rhonda's not new to the organisation. She's been here for a long time, spent the last 4 years in IT, but very familiar with our call centre environment. So fantastic to have her on board. And I did just want to take the opportunity quickly to thank the team. What you see here is largely our BAU and how we measure our performance, but what you don't see is all the change that's gone on within the group this 12 months. We went through a change process. There were some really big shifts in terms of reporting and organising our work, and I couldn't have done that without the team. So I just want to publicly extend my thanks to them. All right, graphs that you are hopefully now relatively familiar with, you'll see that we're generally tracking down in terms of the lending of our physical books, so they're down about 3%, but that's offset by our lending across e-resources, so they're up sort of 7%. I guess the main point here, and I made it last quarter, the physical collection still is the bulk of what we have and what people are engaging with. Heritage and research continues to show strong growth, both across inquiries and the use of our digital platforms. You may recall about 12 months ago where we did a bit of a deeper dive into the PLNZ data. So they run a survey every 12 months, and we get pulled out of that. Really, I guess what you can see up there is we are showing some real strengths in terms of the cultural aspects of their questionnaire. So they work on a quadruple bottom line. And we're on par nationally, largely across those other outcome areas. In terms of programs and events, you will note that we've had a fewer number of those in terms of attendance, but the number of events that we have delivered have held. Programs and events that have held strong. The one counter to that, I would say, is satisfaction remains really high, and we are seeing a lot of repeat visitation. So the team have talked about running some surveys to see actually what are the sorts of programs and events our community wants to see through the library. How do we attract some of those new people? And that survey's, I think, either about to head out or may have already hit the interweb. Really great uptake in terms of residents' experience monitors. So that's a 2% increase since the last quarter. So we're 96% last time, so a 2% increase. So we're still seeing really strong satisfaction with the library services. Our partnerships for digital initiatives have been really well received. Rotorua sits third nationally in terms of uptake across the 67 other libraries. So showing a strong demand for that type of support. And while our door count is down slightly, it's down sort of 2%, I do just want to highlight that we're still actually on average getting around 21,000 people through the doors of the library, so that's a significant number. We've got some access to benchmarking data, and it shows for a regional library we're holding pretty strong based on the staffing levels that we have. The main, I guess, highlights really are just our strategic partnerships. They've started to bring in some really strong partners. So we've had the Chamber of Commerce hold an event. We've had the Tarawera 140th anniversary, and then a suite of author talks. So Louise Erdrich, the Ngaio Marsh Award winners, and Dr. Timotei Timoke. And then this month we have Whiti Ihimara as well. So really high calibre authors, coming to our library to talk to our community. The team have also brought in some external funding from the Francis Moss Board, and that's helped with some improvements to the John Stafford Room. And then our friends at the library have also been instrumental in helping us get some of those authors into our library space. The 14% in terms of program and event reduction, 5% of that is attributed to events. All right, the museum. I'm going to move through this relatively quickly. We have a more detailed update this afternoon. But probably the key points to raise here is our education numbers are showing really positive signs of growth, with Term 2 shaping up to be the first time since COVID that we've hit our contracted Ministry of Education milestones, which is fantastic. There's a bunch more detail in your report in terms of the Ngāti Whakaue Endowment Trust transport being fully subscribed as well. So there's good signs that that program is starting to see some demand again, which is great. Just touching on the fundraising, we weren't successful with achieving our lotteries applications. That was $500,000 that we missed out on, but we did receive $100,000 from the Very Foundation. That's brought our total fundraise this financial year to $444,000. We experience, similar to our funding partners, it is a tough funding environment out there. So, a $444,000 achievement's pretty good in that environment. The 1,000 Friends campaign is steadily progressing. I think we've got a value up there of high 70s. My last advice from the team is I think we've hit the 80,000 mark, so that's really fantastic. And as you know, that's approximately $1,000 donated by each person that signs up to that 1,000 Friends. So that's it's a lot of people who are being very generous in pretty tight financial times. In terms of just some of the highlights, through the museum workshops, essentially we've taken councillors through the exhibition design and the writing process and the research that sits in behind that design work. So achieving that 70% milestone has been a huge effort right across the museum team, not just our consultants that are doing the design. And as we near the end of construction, we're still marking a risk around discoverables, but that risk will remain until construction's completed, but it reduces the likelihood of that risk. The program emphasis will start to shift to reopening, and planning's underway across that operational enablement project. But we can cover that more off this afternoon. Moving across into parks and open spaces, we are seeing, and this is, I think, kind of a key point, we're starting to see stabilisation of those service requests across all types. Service request zero will never be a thing, so we will always have service requests, but we're starting to see some good stabilisation there. The residents' experience monitor, all aspects in the last survey period have shown an uptick. The exception is cemeteries, but I do want to point out we're still sitting over 82% satisfaction there. We've been doing a lot of training and improvements in that space as well, so since amalgamation, so we anticipate that will continue to maintain some strength. Moving on to some of the highlights and challenges for our planning development space. Of interest, I think, to this chamber, particularly a challenge we raised last report was around the Te Toki sport field development. That is now being progressed. We've had the consents issued, and we're through into a procurement process. The other area I want to update the Chamber on is around the Princess Gate arches. We've had those tenders come in at high cost, and not just high cost, but high uncertainty around the costs that they've provided. So what next steps really are to have a discussion about that with Heritage New Zealand and bring any advice and options back to this chamber to discuss. We will, in terms of the Rere Whakaitu toilets, we'll continue to manage those and keep the levels of service out there, but we paused the renewal of that toilet to allow us to have that levels of service conversation ahead of the LTP. In terms of our operations group within Parks and Open Spaces, I won't labour this too much. You had a presentation on the safety improvements for the annual beds last week, but what I do want to assure the councillors is we're still progressing to establish that 78 square metres of bedding in July and August is when that's programmed for. We've got an electric mower. That's pretty exciting. It's got a name if you're interested. That's operating out at the stadium. That's one of our initiatives to help reduce our fuel consumption. It also maintains the turf out at the stadium really, really well. But we have also entering our quieter winter schedule period, and we've pre-purchased some fertiliser as well to help kind of manage some of the supply chain risks with the conflict in the Middle East. And then our programs team, we have been working very closely with Rotorua NZ since the major events portfolio moved across to them in 2024. They have worked exceptionally hard to bring games into the stadium, and those we've reported on those previously. I guess the two things I would like to say is that we've got 2 Steamers games coming up in August, which is really exciting. A big plug, tickets go on sale on the 27th of June, so get in quick. But if the Steamers are successful, go Steamers, we will also look to potentially have some of the later games in the season as well. I guess the point around that is, we had committed to getting a stadium report back to this group around sort of eight sort of sub options. We had been waiting for a report through Sport New Zealand in terms of stadia nationally. That report's still not available. So what we have done is we've just pushed play on getting some EOIs to see if there are some providers that can do that analysis for us, and we'll bring that back. But look, the team have then used the available resources in terms of staff to actually work with Rotorua NZ to make sure those events in the stadium were really successful. So our focus has kind of been on actually utilising the thing rather than assessing what the utilisation should be. But we are still doing that assessment, and we'll bring it back here. And we have also been working with Rotorua NZ to clarify who the lead agency around certain events is. We recognise, that has been a bit challenging with that shift across. We want it to feel and look seamless, so we will continue to work closely with them and make sure our processes are simple and attract kind of event organisers to choose our region. The one thing I will highlight just in terms of challenges, March 26 we had 86% higher gate count at 8 Mile, at the 8 Mile gate for those who aren't riders, and so that on the previous year, so that's really significant. We've got a watching brief on trends around our maintenance and seeing impacts around that. So we'll watch that really carefully and keep you informed if we're starting to see that our maintenance isn't matching the kind of demand there. But will be a useful conversation come LTP as well. I'm just going to blaze through these slides. You have had Wiremu just speak around the funding. I guess on these, again, familiar pictures, my one caution is around attendance. You could put a weather map a weather graph over the top of that, and that would correlate highly with attendance rates. So where we have cancellations, we have low monthly attendance. But the good thing on the right-hand side, in terms of market satisfaction, we've seen an increase, 3% increase over that period. So I think the main kind of takeaway from me is we've made some good improvements. The participate surveys that we have put out and the engagement we do with vendors is we take that and we implement it, and we're starting to see that hit the satisfaction ratings. I'll just move through this one. In terms of the highlights, I guess main point here is the event space has been really busy this quarter. Anzac Day, we had some fantastic feedback, and thanks to sponsorship we've had through Pūtakanui, we were able to hold a Youth Talent Quest as part of Youth Week, so that had been some time since we've been able to do that. And then just the point that Wiramu's, Mr Tapara's report on funding, that is we are hearing through our partners that funding for events and more broadly funding is really challenging, and certainly is our experience as well when we've been applying for funds. And then customer solutions, we have instead of providing a quarter view, we've pulled together a July through May view of the two years. We are tracking slightly lower in emails. Probably a trend line would have been a little bit helpful for you. However, seasonal trends you'll see are pretty similar across the years. In terms of the KPIs, though, for emails, our overall service level, which is responding to emails within 24 hours, is 90%, and that's up 3% on last year. So good efforts by the team there. In terms of calls, this is also a year view. We've taken 13,000 more calls. What you can see is a direct correlation between volume and our ability to answer within 1 minute. So while our ability to answer in 1 minute drops 2%, that said, we did reduce the number of abandoned calls by 1% over that period. So for such an increase in volume, that's a pretty fantastic result. First point of contact resolution, so this is a new view, a new graph for you, is holding steady around 85, and we have our target of 70% around that. Not in the report, because it was hot off the press, was the Residents Experience Monitor last week, and that had shown we've seen a 2 to 12% increase across the 3 measurement areas in relation to this service. So a really amazing achievement in the last 6 months. So that's quarter-on-quarter improvement. And then in terms of just the highlights and some of our risks, we're getting good data now through our after-hours service, so we're holding steady at around 2,600 calls. Something we've talked to this chamber before is recruitment's a challenge, and especially when you compare that to the data, if we have absences or vacancies, then wait times increase, so it impacts our ability to answer within that minute. We've got parking rollout starting beginning of next month, and then following that FOGO. So we've just noted it as a risk, but we have brought on additional support over the first few months of those to help us with any surge calls or inquiries. And I don't have a slide asking for questions, so no. Anyway, the team will pop up, and through you, Madam Chair, do you want to do it through the order in which the dashboard?
I think because I appreciate that the staff are here, because this is really just an update on the progress so far. If there are any questions, I just ask that you keep them very high level, and if you wish to go down into the detail of any of what's been presented, then you're welcome to, through Alex, get that update directly from staff. Does that sound good? Okay. Councillor Patterson, followed by Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Worship, and through you, thank you for the report, and thank you to the team. Just a question on customer services. And when we have a request for service, the feedback I've got is great, that gets acknowledged to the person who's laid it. The other feedback I got is the other side of the end of it, I guess, is when the job has been completed. Is there an actual contact that says, hey, we've done your job and here's the outcome? Or does that actually occur?
Through the chair, Rhonda can probably address the systems side of things. The process is once a request is lodged, it goes to the relevant team to respond, and it's up to that team to close it out and action it in the system. But we are looking at some improvements in terms of registered portals where people can access that and see where they're up to. But I'll let Rhonda explain that in a little bit more detail.
Thank you.
Thank you. And did you want to add anything to that? You sure? Okay. And Councillor Barker.
Thank you very much. I just want to acknowledge, Alex, your report, and the change in structure is really awesome with the background material there for us, but the high-level graphs and things. So appreciate the work of the team to get it to the point that it is, and acknowledge your achievements. And I think really the question that Councillor Patterson asked is along the same lines as mine. I acknowledge the fact that there's challenges with staffing in the call centre, and my question was, will the increased use of the portal and also maybe Antenno help to alleviate some of that pressure on the call centre and perhaps direct it more towards online inquiries and that sort of thing? Can we push it more that way rather than relying so heavily on our front of house?
Thank you very much. Yes, the use of online portals will relieve some of the pressure. That would allow jobs to go directly through to departments or contractors. Antenno would still come through customer solutions for triaging, and where we could provide first contact resolution, that would happen. Otherwise, a job would be lodged for action.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There seems to be no further questions, and once again, we thank you for your progress and the update. Councillors, this is part of a quarterly update that we'll receive moving forward as well. So we now move to our confidential items to be released for the period January 2026 to May 2026. Can I please have a mover and a seconder that this be received? That's moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Brown. Look, it's fairly straightforward. It's procedural. It is noted in the report. I will check if there are any questions, though. No, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you.
Just note, there's a typo on page 58. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Well spotted. So I'll now do a resolution to move into confidential. Wish to advise that we have 3 items that are being considered in public excluded session. First of all, confidential minutes. We will have an update regarding Rotorua Museum Te Whare Tonga o Aotearoa reopening, update and progression of exhibition project. Reason for that going into confidential is the withholding of information is necessary to protect information where the making available of that info would be likely unreasonable to prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied or who is subject to information. And also section 7.2 H and I, withholding of information is necessary to enable council to carry out commercial activities and also to carry on without prejudice or disadvantage to those negotiations. Then finally, we also have an appointment of a chairperson for Rotorua Regional Airport Limited, RCCO. Can I please have a mover and a seconder that we move into public excluded? That's moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That is also carried. Thank you. Let's just take a quick 10-minute break. I know we had a little break earlier.